Okay, we're going to talk about and run through a demo of Fourlane CX today. So you're going to hear me just call it the CX product. The first thing that I'm going to cover is I'm going to cover licensing and how that works. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the product and the workflow of the product and how it connects through into the QuickBooks product. So that's kind of my plan, my agenda for today. So first of all, when it comes to licensing, right, we have the QuickBooks Desktop license that people have, and this is a per user license, so whoever's needing access to the QuickBooks Desktop file would have a license of QuickBooks Desktop. This is a locally loaded desktop software, right, not through a web browser. So if you did want to have the access it from anywhere or, you know, not have to have your own server, then we would have a secondary licensing option, which is through hosting, right? So you pay for the QuickBooks Enterprise software license, and then we also pay for the hosting, and that's usually a one-to-one. If you have one user of QuickBooks Enterprise, then you have one user of hosting that you pay for if you want to have access from anywhere and or you don't want to have your own internal server. Okay, the reasons why a lot of people go with the hosting as well is because even if they have their own internal server, they have a lot of other things running on it, and it can degrade the performance of the accounting team who needs access to QuickBooks. Okay. Now, the third is in CX. And in CX, the way that the licensing works, so this is a true web-based product. The price is the price. You don't have to pay for a license of this product as well as a license of hosting. It's just included because it is web-based. And the licensing currently works in packages, right, per user packages, and it does not have to be a one-to-one. So if people only need access to the CX product and they do not need access to the QuickBooks Desktop product, then they could just access all the data they need here, okay? So you can have, let's say, 3 users of QuickBooks Enterprise hosted, and then you can have 20 users of CX, and of those 20 users, 3 of them might be people who also need to access the QuickBooks software, and then the other 17 don't, right? So it keeps the licensing costs down, it keeps the hosting costs down, and then they can just access through a more convenient place, which is just a web browser, right? So that's how the licensing works. Secondarily, when it comes to support of the CX product is supported similar to how other apps are supported. When we go through implementation of an app, whether you have QuickBooks, right, from the get-go or whether you are going to be new to QuickBooks, it is part of our design process to design the setup and the workflow of the app software, okay? Now this is significantly less than a regular app, right? So if you're going into some of the more complicated manufacturing apps or like wholesale distribution apps or, you know, project management apps, it can be quite complicated. The design of this, because it's meant to mimic the experience of QuickBooks, is going to be very simple. The workflows are going to be very simple, but what we do want to make sure is that you understand the things that you can do here that you can't do there. And then there are a couple of things that we do have to set up in CX along the way, which we have videos for, but we prefer, again, to use our team, our services team, to implement any kind of mid-market implementation. If you work with a services team, a consultant around that, you're going to be more successful. So we suggest that you work with the services team, but we also have videos you can follow along. And they're pretty simple things. They're the things that in the QuickBooks API we don't have access to. So things like the templates, right? So when I'm saying templates inside of QuickBooks, when I go to create an invoice, I have the ability inside of QuickBooks, and all the pop-ups, I have the ability inside of QuickBooks to format the data layout of the templates, right? I can say what the title of the invoice is. I can move boxes around to put them in different order. I can drag and drop things around. I can insert images. All of this customization of the template inside of QuickBooks is not part of the API, so we cannot read that. So we have to kind of duplicate that effort into CX, which we have that built in, right, when we go into the design of templates. And we have videos on this as well. Okay, so there are a couple of things that you have to set up, but the setup is very minimal compared to most what you can, other apps that you might have had to go through in the past, because we really use as much as we can from what we have available when we read QuickBooks the first time. Okay, so a couple of things, and really those couple of things, I can list them off for you. User setup, template setup, custom fields will transfer across, but if you use drop-down lists, multiple choice lists for your custom fields, we have to move the multiple choice list across, and that's it. So the templates, there's actually one more, because I say the template here, right, what we see on the screen, and then the print template. Those, to me, are two different things. They're two different videos that we have training for. But it's pretty simple. Otherwise, the rest of it just comes across. Okay. Let's go ahead and, now that we understand, before I dive into product, one more thing. A lot of people ask us, who should be here functioning inside of QuickBooks and who should be there functioning inside of the more accessible and faster place CX? The answer is, we say the core accounting functions, right? So CX was initially built because we needed a place where we could pull users out of the QuickBooks Desktop database. If you know desktop products, right, the more people you have accessing the same product, the same back-end system, the slower it could possibly go. And I'm sure you guys have seen that before. So what we did is we said, okay, one of our biggest complaints for our clients or one of the biggest complaints in the QuickBooks space that we've heard is speed of file. So what we said, okay, well, we're going to pull some of those users who are not doing the core accounting functions, the functions that we're not going to remove from the QuickBooks product. We're going to put them in a place where they can do those functions, data entry, right, looking up information, customer history, creating customer transactions, attaching documents to customers, creating purchase transactions, right? So data entry type of things, not accounting-based things. So accounting-based things to me would be things like journal entries. We don't have journal entries we do have yet, right? Maybe that'll come in the future, but journal entries, generally those tend to be end-of-month type of things. Cycle counts, those are not things we're doing on a day-to-day basis, right? Again, eventually maybe we might see those in the CX product, but not right now. We're not reconciling banks up there, right? Those are core accounting functions, things that we do periodically, not all the time, and usually the accounting department is responsible for reviewing and oversight of these kinds of transactions. Leave the core accounting people here functioning in the QuickBooks product, because there is nothing better than this QuickBooks product for the price point and what you can do with it. You cannot get better. And how easy it is to go through implementation compared to other products, you can't get better than this product, right? So we support accounting, staying here, and who we're trying to possibly remove from the product are the people who are doing more of those data entry, lookup type of things, okay? Now I understand that it could be a little confusing in the beginning, but that is something that we will help you to navigate licensing-wise. We do have a lot of our customers who, even though the core accounting people have access to the QuickBooks product, they may still have access to the CX product because they like using it better because it's faster. So if they have to go in and do things like enter a whole bunch of bills or create a whole bunch of purchase orders or move the sales order to invoice, a whole bunch of them, then they actually prefer to do some of those functions in the CX product because it's just faster. So they can have access to both licensing-wise. They don't have to. And if you really need to segment and think about it, it's core accounting users. And how excited, by the way, are our core accounting users to not have, the sales reps slowing them down? That's also what we hear a biggest amount of feedback is. They say, the sales reps log in and we see, I come in the morning, I start at 6 a.m. and then as soon as it hits 8 a.m. when everybody else gets here, my system slows down. That's what we're solving for here, right? Let's put all those sales reps up, who don't actually need to be logged in all the time. A lot of times, right? They log in, they pull up a screen that says estimate, and then they start an estimate and they just leave it there. Well, they can do that. They can keep doing that, but it's not going to slow down QuickBooks at all, so it's nice. All right, so let's go ahead in here to CX. I'm just going to go through customers versus vendors. It's going to be the same thing, but navigationally, we can change out your logo up here, so you can add your logo. So when we log into the product, your employees will see your logo up top here. When you look at navigation, it looks and feels very similar to QuickBooks. It's not exact, but it looks and feels very similar. When I'm talking about lists, here's my chart of accounts, items list, price level list, right, billing list, class list, etc. Under company, I don't have the same drop down, right, because a lot of company holds accounting functions, but you can see chart of accounts, homepage, preferences. Customers, you cannot modify preferences, by the way. We're reading preferences up here, and that helps us to do some of the setup, right? That's what I was talking about before. Customers, create invoices, sales orders, etc. Vendors, drop down. So the list, if you are familiar with QuickBooks, looks very similar. Under employees, we do not process payroll through here, but we can enter time, right? It looks very similar. Okay, so I'm going to dive in. I can come to the customer just like in QuickBooks. I can go to the Customer Center from here, from the drop-down. I can also go to the Customer Center from here, from the link, and it takes me into my Customer Center. Again, this Customer Center should look and feel very similar to what we're used to seeing in QuickBooks. I can click on the icon here and choose my column chooser. So in QuickBooks, this is just a difference, right? The navigationally, in QuickBooks, you can right-click in when you're in a web-based product. It doesn't work exactly the same, so we have a gear button where you can choose a column chooser. This is where I can decide to add in sales rep. I can add in customer type to my list down here. Now, something that is so cool that took it just a little bit further is we do have filters right from here. So search text is searching all text. So if I just start typing in EE, right, it'll pull up everywhere that has EE somewhere in this list here. So much better search. Filters also much better here. So look, I can filter through, right, enter text and select all. So I'm doing it. I can filter through here and say, right, like which balances. I can filter through reps and say only show me the ones. So the filters are significantly better. And then one of the things that I like even the best, okay, so because a lot of people say, well, I need to go into the reports. Well, you don't actually need to go into the reports a lot of times, because a lot of times it's just right here for the data you need. We're used to, QuickBooks has taught us, go to reports to find the data. Well, if I wanted to see and figure out, right, like let me see totaled by sales reps, all of the customers, I just drag it right up here. There's a drag column header section, and now I can see all of Bill's customers. Right now I can see all of MA's customers, Bill's BH. And then when I'm done, I just drag it right back. Right, so some cool additive features, and this is why going through with an implementation consultant could be helpful. Okay, so looks and feels exactly the same. There are a couple of other things that we have in here that are slightly different. I just wanted to point out the related transactions. So under the related transactions tab, we do have the anytime a company has had a purchase order, I'm trying to find one here, but if a company has a purchase order that is related to it, you will be able to see that purchase order in here as well. So we took a couple of pieces just a little bit further, right? So for people who are wanting, you know, mini project management light, I want to be able to see the things that I purchased tied to this job, you'd be able to see those related transactions showing up on the list here. So pretty cool. Coming back to the transactions, so we have the drag and drop field up top here. I have the view transaction, or you can double click on it. I do have the drop down here where I can create, right, whatever we need to create from here. So if I say sales order, then it's going to pop out an additional tab. What? So I can go, I can drag this over here, and I can use multiple screens. This is also why some of the accounting people like it, right? They like to be able to see the things in their multiple screens, because us accounting people love multiple screens. Okay, so I could go from there, create sales order. I could also double click to open up, and look at, I have the create sales order tab open, and I have a sales order open. Also something that's slightly different, right? So I'd be able to come in here and see it. The look to feel is very similar. Up top here, right, I've got custom fields. I have my PO number field, and you can decide again through the template setup, which is up here. I'm sorry, you can decide through the template setup. Sorry, there's my gear. I was like, where's my gear? You can decide through the template setup what fields you want to show on the top, and then as well down here which fields you want to show on the screen down below. Okay, I have my sales reps, territories, right, buyer names. These are all custom fields, revenues, all custom fields that we have set up in here. The custom field limitations, we don't have the same limitations as they do inside a desktop. We can add additional custom fields here that aren't syncing into QuickBooks as well. So lots of data can be possible. So navigationally, looks and feels exactly like we're used to in QuickBooks. Okay, I can come in here and create a new customer or a new job. I'm going to go ahead and create a new customer. When I do that, I can put in the customer name. So this is a candy store that we have been working through. So I'm going to say LA Sweets is the company name. And you can see I can tab, right, just like I can in desktop, copy and paste, and it's going to be Rob Yeti. And the phone number is 888-555, right, whoops, deek. I can put in mobile phone numbers, tab through the additional fields, just the same as you guys are used to seeing, test@test.com. When I come down to my invoice address in here, right, I can have the LA Suites, Suites, and then, 855 ABC Street, Los Angeles, CA, 9. And the notes in here, if we need to say care of accounts receivable, we could add that kind of stuff. I could add ship to addresses in here, right? The ship to addresses will flow through to the purchase orders if we're doing drop shipments. Payment settings we have in here, right? I could put in an account number. So all the fields that you're used to seeing in QuickBooks, my purpose is all the fields you're used to seeing in QuickBooks, right, are still here. Sales tax settings, if we have sales tax enabled, additional information, I can put in customer types, I can put in the rep, I can put in, project manager is Cho, whatever the additional custom, these are all the custom fields over on the side here. And I can say save, okay? Okay, and now we can see LA Suites has been created. I have all the information in there, right? No transactions have been created. Now, when I go down into QuickBooks and I look at my customer center, LA Suites is actually already there. When I open it up, I see all the information is filled in. My payment settings, net 15, account number, additional information, right? Project manager, Cho, all that information's in there. Very cool. So seamless sync. The sync down is a 10-second sync. Every 10 seconds, it's going to grab whatever's new or changed. The sync up is between every 5 to 10 minutes is the sync up. Okay, and the reason for that is the expectation is the creation's happening here more. Also, best practice and what we coach people through is single point of entry, right? With any software that you're working in, single point of entry is most important. If you're creating sales orders in CX, just create sales orders in CX. We don't want to go and have like half of our team creating sales orders in QuickBooks and half of our team creating sales orders in CX. We can do that, but there could be a timing issue potentially, right? It's best practice with any software, not just with this software, with any software, to have single point of entry. Okay, so we're going to be recommending that here as well. All right, now let's go ahead, just so that you guys can see it, although I think you get the gist, I'm going to go ahead and create an estimate in the system. When I create the estimate for LA Suites, right, just the same, right, tabbing, I can tab through the fields. I can add a class in here, the date. I've got my estimate system set up. We do have a more button, so you can choose to have pop-outs for your custom fields if you wanted to, or for your fields. If you wanted to have pop-out fields, you have that instead of like taking up so much white space. Again, something different that QuickBooks doesn't do, but have that as an option. Coming in down below here, so I have my items in my items list. I'm going to go ahead and add some cherry cola gum. I'm going to quote for $85. The cost is $2.50. The markup that is default is $240 markup. You do have some fields in here that you can add, which are a little bit different. We can add, right, usually in QuickBooks you can hover to see quantity on hand and quantity available. I can go ahead and add those to the screen here, and they're grayed out fields, right? So I have 1283 on hand, 355 available for sale because they're on sales orders. So very similar to what we're used to seeing in QuickBooks, but we just have them as columns, so you don't have to like hover over each line. Hover each line. So we did some minor improvements is basically what we get to. So you can see it right there on the screen. We have the markup percentage or dollars. Most people wouldn't be showing both of these, right? So they would choose either the markup percentage or the dollar. They wouldn't be showing both. Okay. And then when you, once you hit save, right, the transaction is saved in the system, and then it's going to sync on down into QuickBooks as well. So of course I'm going through this in a super detailed way in this demo, but the idea behind it would be, you come in here, create a new customer. This customer is, Joe's Candy Shop, right? And you can fill in all the information, but I'm not going to fill in any additional information. I'm just going to say that and say save. Now Joe's Candy Shop is created. I come in here and create an estimate. I'm actually going to switch it this time so that you can see. I come in here and create an estimate, and it is the cherry cola gummy estimate, and it is quantity of 75. I'm going to do the markup this time. The markup is going to be $500, right? And then say save. And then when I go down into QuickBooks, now, right, Joe's Candy Shop is created. The estimate's already there. When I look at the estimate, 75, $500 markup, so everything's already there. So just that fast. And that's what CX is, right? It's just point of entry. Now I can also, as a user, go in and use it for point of reference. I can go into the Customer Center. I can say I want to be looking at, Austin Candy Shop. What is our invoice history with them? Also, you can zoom in and out, right? Because it is through a web browser. So if your eyes are good, not like my eyes, you can zoom way out here. We could choose the columns that we want to see as well over here and see way more information if you needed to. So I could see all of the invoices are related. If I had purchase orders, I would be able to see the purchase orders related to them. If I needed to go into the vendor center and see what vendors I've purchased from and open up any purchase orders related to them or item receipts, right? It can be used as a point of reference as well. The last little piece I just wanted to cover in this video is that we can put in time cards in here. So again, a lot of times people are paying for T-sheets, and T-sheets is just continuing to get, QuickBooks Time, it's just continuing to get more expensive as well. So there's a licensing play there where you can enter time cards up here, right? So I can choose my name, employee is Marjorie, and then what job am I working on. If you chose to do a job, I can choose which service item, design, how long I worked on this, and then if there's a payroll item, right, associated with it, which is what you have to choose in QuickBooks as well. We're working on having some defaults in that if they have a certain class, and then if I wanted to put the memo in there. So finished DD custom candy design. And then I can hit save. And then, of course, it pops it into the time over here. But when I go down into QuickBooks as well to my weekly timesheet as an example, and I choose Marjorie, so you can see it's already down here. So time card information comes across as well. So we can do payroll through this. We could also do billable time if we need to through this too. So that's the exciting part. So at the end of the day, when people ask me why do we launch this product is about accessibility through a web browser. It's about speed, right? How fast we can look something up, how fast we can get to something. We're not waiting with the spinning wheel of QuickBooks. Logging in to it, right? That is one of the biggest complaints, especially if you have to go through a hosting login, right? A remote desktop login and then a QuickBooks login. That can take a couple of minutes and people get quite frustrated with that. And then accessibility of data. Right, the data is accessible for the things that we need because if it's in QuickBooks, it's here for the most part, right? Not payroll data. And then, but most people don't need accessibility of payroll data, let's be real. And then the last piece, of course, is that it looks and feels like QuickBooks. So it's not a massive overhaul to your team to relearn something new. When some of our people who say like, oh, I'm going to use it for estimates and sales orders, their alternative. If we said, what would you have gone with besides this? It would have been a CRM system, right, which would be a massive overhaul, a massive workflow overhaul for them. So this is very simple. The go live piece of it, right, design and implementation piece of it tends to be very simple, and the team doesn't lose a lot of energy trying to learn a new product. So this is CX.